Breaking Bad is the most overrated TV show of all time. Yeah, I said it. Fucking right, I said it. There's many people out there who have funny ideas. One of those funny ideas is Breaking Bad is the greatest TV show ever made. In fact, you can look across the internet at all these lists of the greatest TV shows. I even seen a list that had Breaking Bad at number 1 and The Sopranos was at number 9. I don't know what that's all about. There's people out there who've seen The Sopranos and Breaking Bad, but they've never seen The Wire, and yet they still insist that Breaking Bad is the greatest TV show of all time. This is nonsense. The Sopranos and The Wire can't be touched. Breaking Bad isn't even the greatest TV show of the noughties, or even of the last decade. Going through lists of greatest TV shows, you'll often see Sopranos, The Wire. Sometimes you'll see Deadwood, 6 Feet Under, a couple of others. These shows are masterpieces in their own right. Breaking Bad? I mean, look, I put it up there with Game of Thrones and Rome. It's very compelling, very entertaining. There's lots of fun things going on. There's great characters in it. It's written very well. You want to tune in each week to find out what happens, etc., etc. And hey, look, there's some lunatics out there that think Westworld and Watchmen are the greatest TV shows ever made. There's some lists out there that would put those shows above all the other ones I've mentioned. These people are lunatics, and these people should be lined up against the wall and shot. Now, I'm not going to waste time talking about all the good things about Breaking Bad. That's not the point. You know what they are. There's plenty of other people doing it. The internet is awash with all the great things they've done. So I'm not going to waste my time regurgitating it or saying my opinions on it, because that's not what it's all about, is it? And before you say anything cute like, this geezer's just some shitlord who likes to take a dump on popular things and wind up the fans so he can get clicks. You're fucking right. But the problem is, you're not as right as I am about Breaking Bad. So, shut up and watch. Now, we're going to be doing this in the style of lists. Why lists? Because people like lists. And SEO demands that it be a list. Because basically the robots have socially engineered you into loving lists. That's all your brain can process. Lists, 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 lists. I didn't set these rules. I didn't tell the robots to do this to your brain. I'm sorry. So, number 1. Two-dimensional villains. There's obvious comparisons with the 2 other shows that are considered to be the greatest of all time, The Sopranos and The Wire. Breaking Bad is a show that's built around the premise of organized crime. That's the alternative edgy lifestyle that you like to watch but never like to participate in. Whereas The Wire and The Sopranos do have bad guys to a certain extent, no one is really a full-fledged baddie. When Stringer Bell is killed by Omar Little, you feel sorry for him, despite his behavior over 3 series being pretty despicable. Look at Ralph Cifaretto. He meets his demise in Series 4 of The Sopranos, and despite the fact that Ralph is a disgusting human being who punched a stripper to death, one that was carrying his baby, you feel something for Ralph. That's called 3-dimensional characters. Breaking Bad actually has the bad guys like the fucking A-Team, Gus Fring, that weirdo kid, Tuco, Hector Salamanca, and the neo-Nazi gang that I can't remember. You root for their demise, and you are satisfied when they die. Because not only did they not really have any qualities that would make you feel any kind of empathy for them, their deaths were executed in a way that made you shout, "Yeah, get 'em, Walter, yeah!" Like a little schoolboy watching the Batman series in the 1960s. No one dies like that in the other shows. We know Richie Aprile is a piece of shit, but his death isn't something done in a way that satisfies. In a way, it's kind of anticlimactic. And it's supposed to be. And their only real characterization is stuff that makes them look evil or badass or dangerous. Oh, he's such a badass, he is, oh! Which basically makes this show for man babies. Number 2, the plots in Breaking Bad are just like Saved by the Bell. Remember Saved by the Bell? Not the silly new one. I'm talking about the classic. The silly old one. Remember how Zach Morris was always hatching a scheme? And often they would involve him having to be in 2 places at the same time or something like that. One time, Zach Morris even fakes that he is dying in order to have a smooch with a pop star. So where am I going with this? Wait. Just fucking wait. Remember how Mr. Belding and Zach's chums would hatch an elaborate plan to teach him a lesson, often involving the whole school being in on the same prank, involving intricately planned and most unlikely to pull off scenarios, like everyone would pretend that Zach was dead to make him believe he was walking around as a fucking ghost. That's what Breaking Bad does, and fairly often. And that's also what its spin-off, Better Call Saul, does, fairly often. Remember when Gus Fring's big plan to take out the Mexican cartel was to poison them all using a very expensive bottle of mezcal, even poisoning himself and Mike Ehrmantraut? He planned it so well that there was a makeshift hospital waiting for him with the cure to save himself and Mike. Do I need to explain how shaky this whole plan is and the chances of pulling it off successfully would be very slim? Should I also remind you of the time Walter White poisoned a little boy? Yes, he poisoned the little boy in order to make Jesse believe that he had poisoned the little boy so he could convince Jesse that it was actually Gus Fring who had poisoned the little boy in order to make Jesse believe that he had done it. And I know what you're thinking, but the fact that Gus came up with a plan to kill the cartel would make Jesse believe it because Gus does elaborate things. Sorry, pal, but if you're building a story arc using elaborate plans that even Zach Morris would think twice about, you're taking the piss. But you definitely know your audience. Man babies. And the girls that love them and regret having children with them. And speaking of things that man babies like, number 3, it's full of badass moments for children. I couldn't really think of a proper term to use, so I just wrote that down and didn't refine it, and it's just made it into the final cut. So you got things like when Walter White says, "Say my name," and the guy goes, "Heisenberg, you're goddamn right." And that happens, and all the little man babies watch and go, "Yeah, Walter, you're such a badass. Tell him, Walter, yeah." Then there's the scene when he tells his old business associates that they must take care of the trust fund for his son, you know, the annoying kid. And laser beams point at their heads, and he tells them that paid assassins will be watching them forever, but it's just a little trick. Something that Walter does a lot. And this happens, and the man babies go, "Yeah, Walter, what a badass." Or him saying, "I am the man that knocks." Ugh. And the final scene when he has the silly gun contraption that springs out the car boot, and the little man babies scream, "Wow, that was so badass, oh!" Paulie Walnut's just using hand gestures is enough to make you love his character and see what an absolute fucking pimp he is, and to see what an absolute legend he is. Omar Little walking down the street to buy some cereal whilst whistling as everyone throws out their stashes of drugs and money to stop him from entering and robbing them is enough to show you that these characters are all about it. A man talking a lot and using contraptions is overkill. And you know all the writers gathered around after they'd written what they'd done and read it back and got little boners, saying, "Oh, yeah, dude, that's badass. Walter's such a badass, dude. Oh my god, yeah." And Mike, this dishevelled old crow, can disarm a man's weapon like Jason fucking Bourne. "Mike's so badass. I wish my granddad was as badass as Mike." Oh, please. 4. So many storylines that are just mad capers on ways to cook meth. It's kind of also like Power Rangers. Intriguing. You remember Power Rangers, don't you? It was very formulaic. Every week for 20 odd years, the Power Rangers would have to deal with some alien sent by the main bad guy to Earth. It would cause a bit of chaos, so a bit of story would happen. And then basically at the end, the alien would turn into a bigger alien, and all the Power Rangers vehicles and spaceships and shit would all come together, and they turn into a big robot, and they'd have a massive fight in a cheaply made cityscape that went on every week. So what happens almost every week in Breaking Bad? Every week, Jesse and Walt need to cook meth. There's many elements to cooking illegal narcotics, and Jesse and Walt have had many wacky adventures solving each aspect of the problem. Finding ingredients, finding somewhere to cook it, finding more ingredients using more elaborate methods, finding somewhere to cook it using even more elaborate methods, and then, of course, selling the meth. Finding a crazy supplier, then killing them. Then finding a crazier supplier, then killing them. Finding a super evil arch nemesis crazy supplier, then killing them. Then finding guys to help them cook and sell meth who are crazy, then killing them. Number 5. Overly long scenes of wonder. Breaking Bad and its follow-up, Better Call Saul, have this habit. And this habit is having a lot of scenes that I would definitely say are pure filler. You know the ones The scene of the kid collecting spiders in the desert that goes on for 16 hours. Scenes of characters searching a house or a car that go on and on and on. And I get it. You're supposed to be thinking, ooh, what are they doing? And you're supposed to try and figure it out in your brain. But then it goes on for too fucking long and you just don't care anymore. And you wonder why these clowns enjoy wasting your time. And then there's meth cooking montages. And these are definitely pure filler. And it's only interesting because it's illegal drugs. And that's edgy. Ooh. If they were cooking up their homemade version of a Mr. Sheen oven cleaner, who'd give a fuck? Number 6. Walter White is MacGyver with cancer. I've already compared Breaking Bad to Power Rangers and to Saved by the Bell. Well, now I'm going to compare it to another shitty TV show from the 80s. MacGyver. Young war hero Angus Mac MacGyver has an extraordinary knack for unconventional problem solving and an extensive bank of scientific knowledge. Every week, little boys would tune into MacGyver to see how he'd use his knowledge of science to get himself out of a pickle or defeat the bad guys. He'd make bombs from the most unlikely ingredients. Once, he even used ice and PVC glue to make a fucking bomb. He also turned obscure things into magnets, and every week he was always outsmarting the villains with his intellectual prowess. Sound familiar? Little men and their suffering spouses would tune in each week to watch Breaking Bad to see how Walter White would use his scientific knowledge and cunning to get himself out of a pickle or defeat the bad guy. He'd make bombs out of the most unlikely ingredients, such as ice, aka meth, turn obscure things into magnets, and each week he'd outsmart the villains with his intellectual superiority. Yeah, Walter White is MacGyver. There's no arguing with that now, is there? We need to pause right there just for a second, because I need to tell you about my beautiful website. That's right, look at it. Ooh, beautiful, isn't it? This is the place you need to go. As much as I'd like you to subscribe and share and all that lark, the website is created for you. There's lots of great content on there. I write blogs and stuff. The podcast's on there. There's lots of exclusive content for subscribers too. So you need to go over there and subscribe, because the future is a direct relationship between me and you. We don't need these other platforms and their corporate whoring and their silly ideas about what you can and can't say. No. We're going to get rid of that. It's just going to be me and you. I'll contact you via email. I'll even send you a fucking telegram. Yes. That void you have, maybe you got dumped. You don't get those titty fucks no more. Well, this is the new titty fuck. So go over to the website. Number 7, the ending. There was nothing to care about. The ultimate climax of the show is a showdown between Walter White and these guys. The machine gun gadget that he creates that pops out the trunk of his car. Yeah, I said trunk. Ugh. You know, like something MacGyver would make. This is the big payoff that's been teased throughout the whole series. But unlike the time when he bettered his arch nemesis, Gus Fring, a character that had been built up to be such a cunning and, formidable foe. At the end of the entire show, he betters some people that I don't even remember what they look like or what their names are. That's a problem. I remember the creepy one, and it was very satisfying to watch that weirdo die. But the rest of them? Who are they? Yes, they killed his brother-in-law and Jesse's girl and kidnapped Jesse and stole all the money. But I don't remember fuck all about them, apart from the fact they were neo-Nazi bikers. Killing them is fine, but the very last act of the great Mr. Badass, Walter White, it just feels like they didn't have any good ideas left, except Walt making another gadget. Number 8, cliffhangers. Masterpieces don't use cliffhangers. I'm talking about the kind of cliffhangers that Breaking Bad uses, which are very similar to Dynasty, or Dynasty if you talk properly, and, superhero schlock from the 1930s. Cliffhangers are as old as the cereal. Back in the day when Superman would fight some foe, then he'd be in inescapable peril at the end, and you had to wait until next week to find out if he survived. By series 3, Breaking Bad went from being a quirky and interesting show to an absolute hype train of weekly cliffhangers, leaving you on the edge of your seats to wonder, what happens next? Is this nitpicking? No, it's because this is a show that impresses little baby men, and that's half the point. Number 9. Yes, it's a big list. Bad female characters. You might stumble across a few blogs that talk about how Breaking Bad is somehow sexist because of their female characters. And in this day and age where even Jermaine Greer can be accused of being a misogynist, it's very easy to look at these kind of things and just dismiss them as the ramblings of lunatics. However, they do kind of have a point about the lack of strong female characters in Breaking Bad. Yes, it is true. Looking at yes again, do you get it? The Wire and The Sopranos, you can't help but notice some incredibly great and strong female characters. And we're talking about the proper meaning of strong female characters here, not the bizarre modern interpretation that strength is somehow a girl with the physique of an insect who is able to uppercut a 40-foot killer robot into an asteroid. In The Wire, you had Brianna, Greggs, Snoop, Rhonda, these two crazy bitches. In The Sopranos, you had Livia, Carmela, Svetlana, Janice, Melfi, Rosalie, Charmaine, Adriana, Gloria Trello, Meadow, that FBI bitch. And what you have in Breaking Bad? Skylar, her dumb sister, this evil whore, and goth heroin bitch. Number 10. Give me a high 10. Boom. Pat. It seemed like an original show. The idea was very niche. This guy's got cancer and then he ends up being some meth kingpin. Well, there was a show in the mid-noughties called Weeds. Remember Weeds? That was about a woman who lost her husband and was trying to make ends meet by suddenly becoming a weed dealer. So, on originality points, it doesn't win on that either. Now you're going to say you're nitpicking now. You're just fleshing this out. You're using a lot of filler to get to fucking 10 points on a list. Yes, I am. But that's the point. It's a lot of filler, just like Breaking Bad. Do you understand how I've built and constructed this all together? Do you understand what I've done to your brain? Admittedly, I did just write down Weeds and I forgot to write about the rest of it, to get it some in-depth points. So just go look it up and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's about time you made some effort, isn't it? So there you have it. I could have done one of those essay-style videos that the dweebs do on the internet, comparing every element of Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, and The Wire to build my argument. Characters, writing, cinematography, sound design, epic moments, blah, 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 blah. But that would be unfair. Breaking Bad doesn't even have a tenth of the scope that those other shows have. That's like comparing Barcelona to a Sunday league football team. Even the most minor of characters were memorable in The Sopranos and The Wire. They were well fleshed out, pure detail. I know what you're saying. You love those shows, don't you? Shut up. Those shows weren't devoid of reality. Breaking Bad often showed the consequences of every action that happened. It was always wagging its finger at you going, don't you know there's consequences? Like a morality tale constructed by some fundamentalist church group. Or like the ending of He-Man, when he tells you, don't play near rivers and shit, isn't that right, fucking Thundercat? Yeah, don't play near rivers, you'll die! But it's not deep, and it doesn't hold a mirror up to your life. You can watch The Wire and The Sopranos and have no knowledge of the streets of Baltimore or culture of New Jersey or Italian Americans or anything like that. But there's always something very compelling and true that you can connect with. And it brings powerful emotions, and after a rewatch, as time passes on, it just gets richer and more relevant. Rewatching Breaking Bad is just an exercise in spotting Easter eggs. Hey, that's the pink bear, or hey, that's the same bottle of mezcal that killed the bad guys. It's for man babies. It's for children. And perhaps that's a sign of the times. When Breaking Bad ended, we'd already entered the period of mediocrity that we find ourselves in now. That's why Jordan Peele is hailed as the new fucking Stanley Kubrick. And that's why Breaking Bad is touted as the greatest TV show ever. Even though, in reality, it's Saved by the Bell meets MacGyver with crystal meth and swearing and cancer. Now, depending on what platform you've been watching this, you need to subscribe, like, click bells, share it, and all that stuff, and that's very much appreciated. And if you're one of these people that thinks that your opinion is valid enough for me to reply to, then you'll probably write a comment and I'll tell you to go fuck yourself, because that's the maturity I have towards people that write comments. This isn't a place for debate, my son. This is a dictatorship. But most important for you is to subscribe on my website, because the relationship between me and you needs no third party getting in the way. Let's face it, when you're making love and there's some bureaucrat stood next to you, awful.
Thank you.